Anti-flexion or retroflexion can interfere and does interfere with that. Anti-flexion, retro is a backward tilting of the uterus, and anti-flexion is a forward tilting, and that interferes with the. So I understand. I didn't ask Holly about that the other day. I didn't think about that. We had too many people. I asked her. I found out from her what I needed to know, though, and at that time. Now, histological layers include the parametrium. The parametrium is also called the serosa, and it's part of the visceral peritoneum. The myometrium forms the bulk of the uterus. The myometrium is a muscle layer. Now, is that skeletal muscle or smooth muscle? Come on. Come on, Adrian. Is that myometrium skeletal muscle or smooth muscle?
I say smooth.
You said smooth. You said right. It's smooth muscle. In other words, is it voluntary or involuntary? It's involuntary. You don't control the contraction of the uterus during labor. I mean, the hormone unit does it when it's ready, you know? As it does all that. No matter what you might think, it's going to do all that. So that is, you know, in response to stretching. What actually causes that? The stretching of the uterus at the end of the term. The stretching sends signals to the brain, which causes release of oxytocin, which oxytocin, the target organ, is the myometrium. It starts to contract in medical term, in biological terminology, and you don't like this term, but it causes this contraction to, quote, expel the fetus. Most people don't like to hear that term. Expel the fetus from the uterus. Okay, but that's what's going on there. During childbirth, contraction may help it, and there's the word expel the fetus from the body of the uterus. So there's that right there. Now the endometrium, and I just mentioned this for you, it's already in your note material. The endometrium, the stratum functionalis, shed their menstruation. Just make sure you know, that I'll come back, I might ask you that. Alright, and then the stratum basalis is permanent, produces a new functionalis during the time period following menstruation. It produces a new, now, we mentioned these terms far before. Now, how many of you girls know what this means? Amenorrhea. Now, some of you in the first lab right at the beginning know, you know. What does amenorrhea mean? Amenorrhea. Yeah, you know, I know you know. You know what?
Absence.
Huh? Absence. Amenorrhea means absence of menstruation. Dysmenorrhea means painful menstruation. Okay? That's what that has reference to, amenorrhea. Okay? And then, all right. And when we do that cycle again, when we look at it briefly, I will go over for you this business that we talked about earlier on absence of. I'll just mention that again because I'm probably going to ask something about that on the final exam about amenorrhea in many times in female athletes, people that are involved in running. I'm probably going to ask that again. I'm probably going to ask that on the final. Did I ask Holly the other day about that? All right, now that's just showing. There's a picture like you might see. There's a picture like you might see on the lab test. There's the endometrial gland. That's showing all that is that's showing the stratum functionalis where those glands are longer. See, so that makes sense. The glands are longer out here. That's the stratum functionalis. Down here's the stratum basalis. A little disorganization there. I mean, those glands are very, very small. There's the myometrium down below. So that just kind of gives you an idea of that stuff. Okay? All right, so that's kind of the way that plays out. That's just showing the same thing right there. Blood supply. I mention this because there was a lady that I knew very well. I mean, I taught her in high school, actually, many, many years ago. When I was working on my master's degree, she went on to become an English teacher in high school. Her name was Nell Schuessler. She married a German guy named Schuessler. They've since split ways, and she's remarried. I don't know what her married name is now. But anyway, Nell had two girls. They're grown girls now. They're in their 20s. But anyway, when she was giving birth to one of those girls, she had some massive bleeding. In other words, her abdominal area started really swell. It really it was very frightening. She gave birth over in Bryan College Station because that's where we were close to. And in one of these arteries, the blood supply branches of the internal iliac, called uterine arteries. And uterine arteries branch into an arcuate arteries. You don't need to know all that. That's just telling you right there that the uterus has a rich blood supply. That's basically the internal iliac branches. There's arcuate, there's uterine arteries, and so forth. And and the arcuate branches into radial, that's just telling you, for you women that wonder about the bleeding situation during childbirth, there's a rich supply to the uterine, to the myometrium of blood, all beginning with the internal iliac artery, which branches and sub-branches and so forth. And notice it says arteries that penetrate deeply into the myometrium. And so that is the situation. And this is just kind of showing the uterus with the blood supply. Just kind of there's a uterine artery, uterine so forth, cervix, vagina, there's all that stuff right in there. There's the end of the tube. But you see the blood supply to the uterine area. So that's just kind of giving an idea. The main reason I mention that is because I remember very well when Nell, her first name was Nell, and she said she was married to this German guy named Schussler. He had an air conditioning business in the town for years and years and so forth, and he has since moved on. But anyway, they did quite well with it, and she taught school. And so I do remember her situation with the massive bleeding. It was really a very, very serious thing, Sharon. The doctors noticed her swelling after she gave birth, and it was blood from that. And it was, they did obviously solve the problem and got her on the way, but it was something. The vagina functions include, of course, menstrual flow and sexual intercourse and that sort of business there. Lower portion of the birth canal. Now there's the vestibule, that is the area between, and again, there are pictures of this stuff you can look at in your book. The vaginal orifice opens into an area called the vestibule, and the orifice is partially closed by a membrane called the hymen. Now, one thing I want you to make sure you do understand, and that there are some homologies. Now, if you look, here's one thing. If you look in your textbook at the early development of the male and the female, you can't tell the difference in them from at one point. Are y'all aware of that? You got to look in your book at the development. Now, what is going to determine the difference? All right, here's what's going to determine the difference. The reason I developed like I developed is because I am XY. The reason you develop like you develop, you females, is because you're XX. But we start off in development just alike. You cannot tell the difference early on in a male and a female in embryological development. You can't tell. And then, zoom. I'm XX. Now, what if you say you're XXY? Or XYY, or whatever? You know, you'll see some of that too. And you can't hardly tell. But in the normal situation, Shanna, like you are XX, me and the other guys in here, we're XY. We have the Y chromosome. And that differentiates the male and the female in early development. So the vaginal orifice are opening into a vestibule and so forth. And there's there's this kind of showing you that uterine. In fact, we're going to talk about the paraurethral glands, paraurethral on either side of the urethra. We'll talk about the skenes, the greater vestibular glands, and one of those is homologous to the prostate. Okay, and the other one is homologous to the bulbourethral. Everything in the male reproductive, and I don't really hold you responsible for all this thing, but everything in the male reproductive, there's a homologous to a structure in the female reproductive area. Okay, it's just one goes one way, one goes the other way. The clitoris, for example, in the female is homologous to the penis in the male. And that's just the way it develops. You see what I'm saying? But you can't really tell the difference early on. But it digresses because you're XX and I'm XY.